blood away from glomerulus. So afferent brings blood into the glomerulus, efferent takes blood away from the glomerulus. Okay? So this is afferent, this is efferent. Okay. Now C and D collectively is called glomerulus. C and D collectively is called the glomerulus. Now C itself are glomerular capillaries. So these right here are the glomerular capillaries. Okay? So this whole structure right here is a glomerulus. This is a glomerular capillary, so the glomerulus contains glomerular capillaries. Okay? Now, do you see this area? What I just did with the blue? That is called the Bowman space. Oh, Bowman's capsule. Okay? It's called the Bowman capsule. But do you see between this capsule you have the space? Right? That's the Bowman space. So the Bowman's capsule forms the Bowman's space. Okay? Why? Because you could see the Bowman's capsule, one layer actually touches the glomerular capillaries, right? The second layer actually is away from it, and between the two layers you have the space. So the layer of the Bowman's capsule that actually touches the glomerular capillaries is the visceral layer. The layer that actually is away from it is actually the parietal layer, and between the two layers you have a space again, which is called the Bowman space. Okay?
Where does it form, the Bowman space?
What?
Where forms the...
Bowman space. Okay? Does that make sense?
Could you do that? This
Okay. So, Bowman's capsule has two layers. One layer that actually touches the glomerular capillaries, which is called the visceral layer. One layer which is farther away, okay, and that is the parietal layer. So between the visceral layer and the parietal layer, you have a space which is called the Bowman space. Okay, now E is proximal tubule. You have proximal tubule. Now, the proximal tubule has two different segments. So from this segment up to here, it's called the proximal proximal convoluted, because it's all twisted and turned. Okay, proximal convoluted, C-O-N-V-U-L-A-T-E. Proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, and then this section right here, that section is proximal straight tubule. Does that make sense? So the proximal tubule has two different sections. If it's all twisted and turning, it's called convoluted. And if it's more straight, it's called the straight segment. Okay? So it has two segments. Then basically, you have F. F is the entire thing, which is called loop of Henle. Loop of Henle. Now, the loop of Henle has multiple parts. FA, which is this one going down. It's called the thin descending link because it's compared to this, it's just thin and the fluid is going downward. Therefore, it's thin. Limb. Okay? So FA is thin descending limb. Thin, THIN. Thin descending limb, LIMB. Then you have this segment, which I forgot to label. But this segment right here. Okay? That's a hairpin turn. That segment right there. Okay? Where it turns. It's called a hairpin turn. Hairpin turn. Okay? Then you have a FB, which is this portion. It's thin ascending. And then you have this segment, which is called thick ascending limb. Does that make sense? So loop of Henle has multiple parts. Thin descending, the hairpin turn, thin ascending, thick ascending. Okay? All of those four parts is called the loop of Henle collectively. Okay? Now G is distotibial. G is called distotibial. Now distotibial again has two distinct segments. So from this segment to basically here is called the distal ungulated tubule. Okay? And then basically this segment is distal straight tubule. Okay? So distal ungulated tubule, distal straight tubule. Okay? So if it's turning, it's ungulated, and if it's more straight, it's straight. Does that make sense? Now H is collecting tubule. And you can see collecting tubule is where other nephrons are draining in. So it's collecting from other nephrons. Collecting right here, it's collecting right here, it's collecting right here. Okay? These are where other nephrons are coming in. So other distal tubules are draining in, attaching. That's a collecting tubule. Then the bottom half of it, where you don't see any more draining into, is called collecting duct. Now, this last segment between collecting duct, collecting tubule, you will see a lot of variations within the books. Some books will call this segment collecting tubule, collecting duct, this one collecting tubule, or vice versa. Or they will just call the entire thing collecting duct, or the entire thing collecting tubule. Okay? There's a lot of variations between them. So, for this class, at least for the lecture portion, since so every student is on the same line, basically this portion where other nephrons are draining in, collecting tubule. Okay? And then the point where there's no more draining in, collecting duct. Why? How do you remember which one is duct or tubule? Didn't all of these end with tubules? Collecting tubule. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Now let's talk about different arteries. Okay. Let me ask you this. How does blood travel throughout the body? Like, what vessel does it go to? So from the heart, it enters arteries. From arteries, arteries. So we know arteries at one point turned into the arterioles, and that's what entered the glomerulus and then left the glomerulus. Efferent arteriole is also arteriole. After the arteriole, what vessel does the fluid enter? Capillaries. And from the capillaries, venules, and then veins. Keeping that concept in mind. Okay. Once efferent arteriole leaves the glomerulus, it will now surround the entire nephron, but not as arterioles anymore, because arterioles turn into capillaries. So now, as soon as once an efferent arteriole exits the glomerulus, it surrounds the rest of the nephron as capillaries. Now there are two names for the capillaries: peritubular capillaries and vasa recta. Vasa recta. Now, if the peritubular capillaries are surrounding the proximal tubule and the distal tubule, if the capillaries surrounding proximal tubule, distal tubule, it's called peritubular capillaries. If the capillaries are surrounding loop of Henle, then it's called vasa recta. Okay? So proximal tubule and distal tubule. Therefore, those capillaries are called peritubular capillaries. If it surrounds the loop of Henle, it's called the vasa recta. Okay? Make sense? If it surrounds the loop of Henle, right here you have the loop of Henle. You can see they're surrounding it. So then they are called the vasa recta. Peritubular capillaries. Peritubular capillaries surround the proximal tubule or the distal tubule. Or one more. Or collecting duct, collecting tube. Okay? So if it surrounds anything besides the loop of Henle, it's called peritubular capillaries. Loop of Henle, then it's called vasa recta. Okay? Now, these capillaries will turn into venules. Those venules will turn into vein, and then the blood will leave the kidney by the renal artery, renal vein. Okay, make sense? Okay. Let's cancel this out. I'm cutting a lot of out because you guys are tired and you guys have an exam. So I want you to have a break where you can relax before the exam. Okay, this one I'm going to simplify it. Okay, you know other functions of the kidneys. Kidney maintains homeostasis, okay? It controls water balance. Okay? Cancel this one out. It does salt balance. Cancel this out. Okay? It does acid-base balance. It does red blood cell production, as you guys already know via endocrine, you guys all know that. And it activates vitamin D. Okay? That's all this we didn't talk about. So just make sure when you come into physiology, kidney is going to be a long chapter because I have not covered any aspect of physiology at all. I usually form the basis so then we could elaborate on it. But